Hello and welcome to BQ Prime. I'm your host Vikas Srivastava. Indian Metals and Ferroalloys is India's largest producer of ferrochrome. Ferrochrome, which mostly goes into the stainless steel industry, basically to provide anti-corrosive strength to the stainless steel. The company also has integrated mines, which is a chromite mine, and it is a ore which goes towards the production of ferrochrome. Today we have with us Mr. Subhrakant Panda. He is the Managing Director of Indian Metals and Ferroalloys. He will take us through the company's expansion plans, the financials, as well as the way ahead. Welcome to BQ Prime, Mr. Panda.
Thank you, Vikas.
Yeah, sir. Basically, I wanted to understand what is the reason why you being the largest player in the country, there are so few players in the country, especially when the demand is so high in the automotive grade stainless steel as well as other stainless steel. When we look at globally, most of these sectors are using now stainless steel. Why is it that India hasn't picked up that well, and why there are so few players in this segment?
So, Vikas, as far as ferrochrome is concerned, it's a very capital intensive industry in the sense that to be globally competitive, you not only have to invest in the actual smelters, but ideally also backward integrate into power and the major raw material, which is chrome ore, as you just mentioned. So, A, it is capital intensive, and B, as far as chrome ore mines are concerned, nowadays they are allotted through the auction process, and actually there isn't that much chrome ore in the country if I look at it from that point of view, because Odisha has 98% of India's chrome ore deposits, and those are the mines in Sukinda are the only ones today which are operational in the country. At one point in time, there used to be many smaller players, but their ability to survive is impeded by the fact that this is a cyclical industry, and furthermore, as you said, if you're not backward integrated, then you can't really manage in this industry. That is how gradually there has been consolidation, and we account for about 20 to 25% of the output, and there are of course a few other players.
Right. So we have 20% of the total production of the ore that happens, or the ferrochrome that happens in the country. So how the other 80% is met? Is it basically through imports, or are there other smaller players who are meeting up this 80% of the requirement?
Well, actually, there is very little import of ferrochrome. It's only some specialty grades which are not produced in India, because again, the ferrochrome which is produced is dependent upon the ore which is available. So certain specialty grades like ultra low phosphorus, etc., which cannot be produced with Indian ore, is what is imported. But other than that, there are several other producers who make ferrochrome in the country. But over the years, what has happened is that the smaller players have sort of fallen by the wayside. And I think the final straw on the camel's back was really COVID, because at that point in time, and in fact, leading up to COVID, actually, not so much COVID, but leading up to COVID, because there was a lot of cyclicality or low prices arising out of the US-China trade fracas at that point in time. So there was the balance sheets were quite stretched of a few of the producers, and during the COVID period, until at a later stage when really the stimulus measures kicked in and helped the infrastructure and thereby commodity industry, anybody who had a stretched balance sheet was not really able to survive. So a lot of consolidation has really happened in the COVID period, and that's where we stand today.
Okay. So you spoke about consolidation. Is there a plan where you're looking at acquiring some of these players which had, not a good time in this period? If you're looking at any kind of mergers and acquisitions?
So we are always open to all opportunities that come our way, but at the end of the day, it has to make sense both in terms of a strategic fit as well as the valuations. So for the moment, what we are actually doing is focusing on greenfield expansion. So as you know, we are currently producing about 240 to 250,000 tons of ferrochrome per annum, and that is backed up by 0.6 million tons or 6 lakh tons of chrome ore raising. So we have already embarked upon increasing our mining output in two stages. In the first stage, from 0.6 million tons to about 0.85, 0.9 million tons, and to consume that ore, because we clearly follow the principle of value addition. which is, I think, beneficial for the country as well as for us, because there is much more sense in doing so. So to consume that extra 3 lakh tons of ore, we are adding 100,000 tons of smelting capacity in Kalinganagar in Jajpur district of Odisha. And in a second phase, we will further increase the ore output from 0.85 or zero point 0.9 million tons to about 1.2 million tons. And we will be adding another 100,000 tons of smelting capacity, but that's phase two. So at the moment, phase one is going from 0.6 million tons to 0.9 million tons of ore, and from 250,000 tons of ferrochrome to 350,000 tons of ferrochrome. And the other interesting thing that we're doing also is that we are on the verge of tying up hybrid renewable power for our expansion project, because that will help our decarbonization plans.
So, what is the kind of timeline that you're looking at? One on the first phase and then the second phase that you spoke.
So as far as the first phase is concerned, the mining activities are already underway, and we will look to time the increase in ore output to when we are able to consume that captively. As far as the furnace expansion is concerned, the land allocation is in place, and we have in fact successfully concluded the public hearing. We are awaiting the environment clearance, and as soon as that comes through, which will probably be in the next month to 2 months at the most. So perhaps by the end of November or early December is when we look to start construction of the furnaces, and we will commission the first furnace around June of 2025, with the second one following shortly thereafter. And as I said, the ore output, the increase in ore raising will be timed to when the furnaces come online.
So there'll be, in terms of capacity of these furnaces, in terms of MVA, would be how much?
So we are looking at two 36 MVA furnaces, which are capable of producing about 50,000 tons of ferrochrome each.
Okay. So in terms of timeline, you said roughly around FY 26 is when you are looking
That's
at
right. That's
Okay.
right.
And what's the kind of investments that will go into this?
So let me categorize the investments into two folds. First, as far as the furnaces itself are concerned, we will be spending around 550 crores or thereabouts, including land acquisition costs, which have already been paid, and all of that. As far as the ore expansion is concerned, that is a much larger amount. We are looking to spend around 1,000 crores or so, and that will be spread out over 6 to 7 years. Because do keep in mind that, unlike furnaces which are modular, that you can put up one furnace after the other, as far as mining is concerned, especially since we are going underground, and by the way, we operate the only underground chromite mine in the country. So when you are increasing your ore raising capacity, that to underground, you have to design the shaft and decline, etc., all of that for the ultimate capacity. So we are really investing to ultimately get to 1.2 million tons, although we will be getting there in two stages. So to summarize, around 550 crores for the two furnaces, which we have already, some of it has been incurred in the last fiscal. Some of it we are in the process of incurring now, and this will be spread out really over 2 years or so. And the 1,000 odd crores that we're looking to spend for our increasing our ore raising capacity, that will be over 6 to 7 years.
6 to 7 years. So by 2030 is what you're looking at.
2030, maybe 2031, something like that.
And in terms of your total reserves, you have around 21 million tons of reserve. That's publicly known figure. So how much of that has already been extracted, and what's the kind of potential we still have as far as the reserves are concerned?
So we started out raising about 1.5 lakh tons of ore per annum, and we have gradually stepped that up to about 6 lakh tons of ore. So I mean, while reserves are depleted in terms of the raising every year, but equally we also have a very clear-cut exploration policy, which is we constantly are doing exploration to prove reserves at deeper levels. And that is where we are quite confident of our ability to meet our higher ore requirements. As I said, ultimately going up to 1.2 million tons per annum. In fact, we will look if we can go further beyond that. And our two major mining leases, which are Sukinda and Mahagiri, are there till 2049 and 2055 respectively. So we are very confident that we have enough reserves to meet our expanded ore requirements through the term of the lease.
Right. One, you spoke about, and you also said that 95% of your total produce is getting exported. So, what could be the reason for that? Because we still have demand within the country also, and it's expected to further grow. So, what is the reason that we are looking only at exports? If it has anything to do with margins that we get, pricing, or what could be the reason for that?
So it's nothing to do with pricing really, because this is a commodity which is sold internationally. Duty levels in India are down to about 5%. So there is no significant difference as far as realization domestically or internationally is concerned. It's a minuscule difference. But traditionally, the Indian ferrochrome industry has exported around 40 to 50% of its output. If I talk industry wide, for the simple reason that stainless steel was very slow in picking up production in India, and there is a reason for that, which is stainless steel is a very niche product. To just give you an idea, carbon steel production globally is close to about 2 billion tons, but stainless steel globally is about 60 million tons. So it's a very niche product, and more importantly, if you look at it from the point of view of initial acquisition cost, stainless steel is more expensive, and therefore it is used for very specific applications. But as an economy grows and matures, when you start thinking of it in terms of life cycle costing, which is not just what you're paying upfront to buy that stainless steel, but the fact that it lasts much longer, it is easily recyclable, it is low maintenance, and of course corrosion resistance, etc. So if you bring in the concept of life cycle costing as opposed to initial acquisition cost, then as an economy grows and matures, and people are not looking at how cheaply can I build something, but how long lasting will it be? That's where the trend begins to move towards stainless steel. So Indian stainless steel production has now crossed the 3 million ton mark, and with that, I would presume that going ahead, we will be certainly supplying more domestically than we have until now. In fact, the expansion project that we're putting up is in Kalinganagar in Jajpur district, which is really India's stainless steel hub, and therefore we are ideally suited to cater to domestic demand going ahead from this expansion project. If I were to hazard a guess, I would say in the next 3 to 5 years, we will be probably around 30 to 40% domestic supplies. That's my forecast, but let's see how it plays out.
Right. And who are your major buyers as of now? Since you are exporting around 95%, who are our customers that you are exporting to? And if you are looking at other geographies also.
So our exports are primarily to the Far East, which is understandable both from a logistics point of view, as well as the fact that Far East is again where the bulk of stainless steel is produced worldwide. Our largest consumer is POSCO in South Korea, where we also have a very successful joint venture with them to produce ferrochrome and supply to their Pohang works. But that apart, we have long-term contracts with large buyers in Japan, in Taiwan. We do supply occasionally to Indonesia and some quantities to China as well.
Okay. One application, as we got to know, stainless steel. Stainless steel mostly one that goes towards the household utensils that we commonly associate with. But in Europe and other places, we have also seen automotive grade stainless steel being used now, even in the aviation sector and other construction areas also. So, are you looking at tie-up with other players also, where the requirement or sectoral specific requirements would increase going ahead?
So, broadly, actually, when you talk about stainless steel being used in utensils in India, that's a very low tech,
Right. Yeah.
low grade application. But really, the use of stainless steel is I mean, anywhere you need corrosion resistance. So, in coastal cities, in public infrastructure today, for example, in Mumbai, a lot of stainless steel is being used because being on the coast, otherwise if you use carbon steel it would corrode, and that would require high maintenance. But that apart, there are certain specialty applications in space and defense, in marine oil and gas, etc. Now from our point of view, really, again, you have to look at that and ferrochrome as more as a commodity. Of course, there are certain specifications, whether it is phosphorus, whether it is other elements that have to be controlled. So yes, what we are looking to do is replicate our long-term relationships. So our sales model is that we very rarely look at spot sales in terms of small tonnages, etc. We prefer longer term contracts, whether 1 year or 3 years or longer, where of course the ferrochrome is priced every quarter, because that is generally the principle in ferrochrome industry, that the pricing happens every quarter. Exception is China, where they have monthly pricing. But our approach has always been that we prefer stability over short term gains. And therefore, with whether it is the joint venture with POSCO or whether it is our other long-term contracts, they have an assured supply, we have an assured offtake, and we rely on our long-term relationships to price every quarter in a manner which works out for both sides. And I'm glad to say that we have been very successful in taking these relationships, and in many cases we have dealt with customers for 2 decades or 3 decades. And I think that speaks volumes of our commitment as well as the customer's commitment to keep this going.
Right. Couple of more questions. One on your financials and also a little bit on your debt side. You said that till now you have been debt free, but for your expansion, as you mentioned, around 1,500 crore rupees, would you be looking at leveraging yourself a little bit going ahead?
So we are focused very strongly on being having a balance sheet which can sustain our growth plans, and that is what worked in our favor during the COVID period, where our debt levels were already low to begin with. We were, if I recall correctly, around 0.35 debt equity at that point in time. But I mean, obviously, through the COVID period, given the stimulus measures that India and other countries undertook, primarily in terms of infrastructure development, that worked out very well for the commodity industry. And we had record profitability in FY22. And based on that, we have been able to completely pare down our debt. So we don't have any long-term debt on the books. And that is something that is very handy at a time when interest rate cycles around the world are increasing, and that has helped us with our margins, protecting our margins as well. That apart, we are also expecting a substantial inflow into the company, because we had a coal block allotted to us, which was cancelled in 2014. When the whole en masse cancellation of coal blocks happened on the orders of the Honorable Supreme Court. So that has finally been allotted to a new company, and we are expecting in the next couple of months to get our investment back, which will be upwards of 400 crores. So that will add substantial strength to our balance sheet. So to specifically answer your question, even though we have about 1,500 crores of capex lined up, first and foremost, it is spread out over 7 years. Second, we have substantial cash on the books to meet this expansion capex. And thirdly, of course, on a running basis, we will be generating surpluses as well. Having said that, even though we don't technically need to take debt on the books, but for strategic financial reasons, we might choose to take a little bit of debt, counterbalanced with enough reserves or investments to ensure that we are absolutely on solid grounds. If there is anything that I have learned in my 3 decades in the business, that to be successful in a commodity business, which is very cyclical, and there is nothing you can do about the cyclicality, right? But what is very clear is that you have to have the scale, which we do, and we are expanding further. You have to be backward integrated so as to have costs under control. So the cyclicality means that your margins may compress and expand, but you are never really under threat, so to say. And thirdly, of course, is to keep debt under control. And that is where what was once 1:1 debt equity would have been considered very good, in fact. But we are extremely clear that we don't want to have too much debt on our books. And in my mind, it is the debt to EBITDA which is more relevant than debt to equity, because I mean, EBITDA can fluctuate a little bit based on which cycle of the market that we are in.
Right. And also your quarter one compared to last year, year on year, slightly dipped. So, what could be the reason? Is it that you had a very good quarter in the previous year?
So that is partly the reason. The point I'd like to explain here is how the commodity industry, how ferrochrome in particular works. See, what happens is that there is a time lag between the pricing of the finished product and the raw materials. So what basically happens is you have super margins at a time when ferrochrome prices have run up, but raw material prices have not caught up. And conversely, when you have ferrochrome prices correcting, but the raw material prices take time to correct, that's when the margins start getting compressed. Now, we have one advantage, which is a very strong one, which is that chrome ore is under our control. So that is not subject to fluctuation. So that is a significant advantage. But if I were to give you an example of the last quarter results as compared to the corresponding quarter, we are at that point in time we were consuming metallurgical coke, which is the other major input. So it's chrome ore, electricity, and metallurgical coke. So two things. First of all, metallurgical coke at that point in time was being consumed, which had been bought at a price of about 430 odd dollars. In the ongoing quarter, we are consuming metallurgical coke, which was bought at about 360 odd dollars. And by the end of the year, we will be consuming metallurgical coke, which was bought at about $320 or so. So you can see the steep correction in met coke prices. So that is one explanation. And of course, as you know, thermal coal prices had also significantly gone up last year. But this year, there has been a lot of focus by the government to ensure that coal output is meets requirements, and therefore thermal coal prices are under control, and our power generation costs have therefore come off substantially. So in the second half of the year, we again expect to have good margins. So on average, I would work with about 25% EBITDA margins for the company. That can go up a little bit in a upcycle, and correct to about 18 to 20%. I mean, in
In
these
that
sorts of
range, yeah.
scenarios.
Okay, one last question on overall, how do you see the outlook for the industry, for your industry, especially?
So, that's a general question which I would answer generally as well as specifically. I'm very sanguine about ferrochrome because globally, I think there is a good demand for ferrochrome on account of stainless steel production being good. At this point in time, there are some concerns about China having slowed down, and therefore stainless steel output was off a little bit. But China is looking at corrective measures. They're looking at some measures to support the economy, which is why you have seen there being a little bit more positivity. But what I'm really more excited about is where India stands now, because very clearly I think India is the next engine of global growth, thanks to conducive policies, ease of doing business measures which the government has undertaken, and all of that. And more importantly, the immense expenditure in infrastructure which is taking place at this point in time. Part of that is certainly going to be consuming stainless steel. And that is where we see a very, very bright future for stainless steel in India, and converse, and therefore for ferrochrome. But if I were to answer about the outlook, I think it also depends how you are positioned in the industry. Because for a fully integrated producer like ourselves, and that too with zero debt on the books, I think the outlook is very different to someone who either does not have access to captive ore or has large debt on the books. So I think generally I'm very bullish and positive about ferrochrome, and especially where we stand, where IMFA stands. But I think to each his own in terms of how they have approached their business plans for this sector.
Just a complimentary question. South Africa is believed to be the largest producer of ore, right? So would you be also in sometime in future be looking at some of the mines, acquisition of mines in South Africa?
So South Africa has 80% of the world's chrome ore reserves. At one point in time, they were the largest producer of ferrochrome in the world, but they have now been upstaged by China. And South Africa has had lots of issues, both in terms of their general operating environment, as well as the fact that electricity in particular has been a cause of concern. And for most of the last year, they have had stage 4, stage 5 load shedding, as they call it, which is obviously caused a lot of concern and raised their operating costs. So while we are always open to acquisition opportunities, but South Africa is not a geography that we are actively looking at this point in time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Panda.
Thank
It was
you.
our pleasure talking to you.